Hello and welcome back. I do hope that the start of 2019 has been great for you. Now, as I'm sure you're aware, Brexit is back on the agenda. And a quick reality check. We are currently 78 days from leaving the EU, and the current default position is to leave without a deal. That date is 11 PM on the 29th of March. So let's have a little discussion around what's going to be happening next on the political agenda. So next Tuesday, the 15th of January at 7 PM, Parliament will be voting on the Withdrawal Agreement. Now, the agreement was meant to be put to a vote of Parliament in early December. The Prime Minister pushed that vote back for fear of losing it and went back to the EU in an attempt to try and find additional concessions to convince Parliament to approve the agreement. Now, over the last month, there have been no changes to the text of the Withdrawal Agreement and no substantial concessions from the EU. As you might remember, there were questions around the backstop position for Northern Ireland. Now, in the vote next Tuesday, there are really three options. The first is that Parliament approve the agreement. The next stage will be for the government to put the agreement into UK legislation and for the EU Parliament to agree to it as well. This all needs to be completed by March the 29th. That is quite a complicated process, and it's possible that the government could still have additional defeats during the process of putting it into legislation. The other two options, which are more likely, is that the government lose the vote on Tuesday. And it's really a question then about how many votes they lose by. If the government lose by a handful of votes, the next stage will be for the Prime Minister to go back to the EU and to try and find additional concessions and bring the amendment back to Parliament for a vote again, probably towards the end of January. What will be really interesting, however, is if the government lose by a number of votes, perhaps 80 to 100 votes. In this situation, there is a number of scenarios that can be put in place. It is likely that Labour will come back with a no confidence motion in the government, and in this situation the government could be forced out. There could be a general election, or there could be a push for a second referendum, or an alternative plan for what Brexit would mean for the UK. What we do know is that the government lost a vote yesterday, which means they have 3 days to come back to Parliament with a plan B. That means we should know by Monday the 21st of January what the government are going to be focused on. What we also know is that the government are looking at possibly extending that Article 50 deadline, that's the 29th of March deadline, possibly to June or July to give them more time to negotiate and find a solution.